There is a very specific moment when your money hasn't changed yet, but you're no longer the same person you were before. Nothing shows up in your bank account. No clear opportunity appears. And yet, something inside you starts to shift. A strange feeling, almost uncomfortable, as if your relationship with money were being quietly rewired. Most people ignore this moment, and that's exactly why they miss the turning point. At first, this first sign doesn't feel positive. It doesn't come with excitement or big promises. Quite the opposite. It usually shows up as restlessness, internal questioning, and a different awareness around choices that once felt normal. It's as if certain financial patterns suddenly start to feel heavier than before. And when that happens, it's not by accident. You might be living in this phase right now. Externally, nothing has changed. But internally, you no longer accept the same ideas, the same limits, the same justifications. What once felt normal now feels draining. What used to be tolerable now creates resistance. This is the point where many people think they're falling backward, when in reality they're entering the first stage of a real shift in their money energy. What's most interesting is that almost no one talks about this early stage. Everyone wants to talk about the money arriving, the opportunity showing up, the final result. But very few understand that before any visible gain, there is a quiet internal adjustment taking place. An adjustment that changes how you see time, how you value things, and even the decisions you're willing to make. This is where everything starts to be defined, because from this point on, you can either move forward or try to retreat back into old patterns out of fear of the unknown. And understanding what this first sign really means makes all the difference in what comes next. And if you're listening to this with real attention, there's something that needs to be very clear right now. This content was not meant to be played in the background while you do something else or let your thoughts wander. There is a huge difference between hearing words and truly understanding what's being said here. Hearing is letting the words pass by. Understanding is allowing them to settle inside you, connecting dots you may have never connected before about money, choices, and energy. Many people consume money-related content looking for a quick answer, a formula, a temporary sense of relief. They want to feel hopeful for a few minutes, without changing the way they think or the way they position themselves internally. And that's exactly where most people get stuck. Because when we talk about money energy shifting, we're not talking about pretty phrases or short-lived motivation. We're talking about a real internal process that requires awareness. If you don't understand what's happening inside you, you end up sabotaging the change without even realizing it. That's why listening isn't enough. Understanding is essential. Understanding why certain discomforts appear. Understanding why old patterns start to feel wrong. Understanding why that feeling of, "I can't keep going like this," shows up before any visible improvement happens. When you understand, you stop fighting the process. When you don't, you try to go back to what no longer works, simply because it feels familiar. And let me ask you something now, because this is also part of that awareness process. If, at any level, what's being said here resonates with you, don't just agree silently. Engage. Leaving a comment isn't just about the video. It's a way of acknowledging to yourself that you're paying attention, that you're reflecting, and that you're not just passing through another piece of content. Write one word in the comments that represents what you're feeling right now. It could be clarity, discomfort, change, or even confusion. What matters is putting it into words. When you name what's happening, you organize what's going on inside you. And that becomes essential when money energy starts to move. People who understand this early stage are able to move through it with more stability. People who ignore it often feel lost, thinking something is wrong with them, that they're weak or incapable, when in reality they're simply in transition. And as you begin to understand this process more deeply, other layers start to reveal themselves. layers that explain why some people seem to unlock financial momentum almost effortlessly, while others remain stuck in the same place for years. None of this is random. There is a sequence. There is an internal logic. And this first sign is only the beginning of something much bigger that is still taking shape. When money energy begins to change, almost no one notices it because it doesn't show up in obvious ways. It's not an external event, it's an internal shift. It's as if something inside you slowly comes out of autopilot and starts paying closer attention to everything that used to run on repetition. Thoughts about money that once came loaded with fear now arrive with questioning. Impulsive reactions give way to quiet pauses. And without even realizing it, you begin to behave differently in the very same financial situations you've always faced. This is a delicate point in the process, because on the outside, nothing confirms that something good is happening. Quite the opposite. Many times things even seem more confusing. But this is exactly where the change starts to gain depth. Your mind begins to recognize that certain scarcity patterns aren't just circumstances, but internal constructions repeated over time. And once that awareness appears, it can't be ignored anymore. Even if you try, something has already been activated. You start noticing that financial decisions you once made impulsively now create resistance. Mindless spending feels uncomfortable. Situations where you placed yourself at a disadvantage begin to weigh on you, not because you've become too demanding, but because your energy no longer aligns with choices that drain instead of build. This is a clear sign that your relationship with money is changing at a deeper level, one where there is no automatic return to the way things were before. At the same time, a strange shift happens in how you experience time. The constant urgency, that familiar rush of scarcity, begins to lose its grip. Not because everything is resolved, but because you start to understand that decisions made in desperation almost always keep the same cycle going. Clarity begins to matter more than speed, and this shift completely changes how you view opportunities, risks, and even the value of money itself. Many people mistake this stage for stagnation. They think they're stuck when in reality they're recalibrating. It's as if the internal system is adjusting before allowing new flows to enter. That's why trying to force results during this phase often leads to frustration. Money energy doesn't respond well to unconscious pressure. It responds to internal coherence. And that coherence begins the moment you realize you can no longer act against yourself just to survive. Another important detail is that during this phase, you begin to see the emotional impact of money in your life more clearly. Not just how much comes in or goes out, but how it affects your decisions, your relationships, and your self-worth. What once seemed like a purely financial problem starts to reveal itself as a pattern of identity. And understanding that is uncomfortable, because it requires taking responsibility for choices that were previously justified only by circumstances. That discomfort is not a sign that something is going wrong. It's a sign that you're no longer operating unconsciously. And whenever awareness increases, the old model begins to break down. That's why it's common to experience a temporary sense of emptiness. You no longer identify with scarcity, but you haven't fully accessed abundance yet. This in-between space scares many people. And it's exactly here that many turn back, clinging to old patterns out of fear of the unknown. But when money energy truly begins to change, going back no longer satisfies you. Something inside you knows you can't pretend you don't see it anymore. That you can't keep shrinking yourself, self-sabotaging, or accepting less than what aligns with who you're becoming. Even without having all the answers, you begin to sense that a new way of relating to money is forming. Quietly, subtly, but unmistakably. This stage requires observation, presence, and above all, understanding. Consuming money content while waiting for a magical solution isn't enough. You need to understand what's being activated internally, because those who understand this process can move through it with greater stability. Those who don't interpret everything as chaos, when in reality, it's reorganization. And this difference in perception determines who moves forward and who remains stuck in the same place for years. As this awareness deepens, new signs begin to appear. Signs that go beyond the initial discomfort and start to reveal concrete changes in your behavior, your posture, and the way you position yourself in your financial life. But before moving into that, it's important to know whether what's been said so far truly resonates with you. So if any part of this content describes exactly what you're living right now, acknowledge it. At the end, leave a word or short phrase in the comments that represents this moment in your life, such as, "I'm understanding," "I'm in transition," "something shifted," or "this makes sense to me." This doesn't just help the video, it helps you recognize where you are before moving to the next level. When you begin to recognize this point of transition, something interesting happens. The way you interpret your own thoughts starts to change. Ideas that once appeared automatically, like "this isn't for me," "it's not the right time," or "I never succeed," begin to be observed from a distance, almost as if they're no longer absolute truths, but old programs trying to stay active. And this simple shift in perspective deeply alters your money energy, because money responds more to what you believe is possible than to what you superficially desire. At this stage, many people report a sense of internal isolation, not because they're alone, but because they no longer fully identify with conversations, habits, or even goals that once made sense. Money-related topics are seen with more depth, and shallow discussions or victim-based narratives begin to feel draining. This doesn't mean you've become cold or detached. It means your financial awareness is being refined, and anything that doesn't evolve with it naturally begins to fall away. Another important shift is that as money energy changes, you start noticing the invisible cost of certain choices. Not just the financial cost, but the emotional, mental, and energetic cost. Jobs that drain you, relationships based on dependency, decisions driven purely by fear, begin to demand a price that once went unnoticed. This realization becomes a turning point, because money stops being just about survival and starts being connected to quality of life, freedom, and internal alignment. It's common during this phase to feel a desire to reorganize everything, not impulsively, but strategically. You feel the need to understand where your time, attention, and energy are going. And even if you don't yet know what the next financial step is, you're very clear about what you're no longer willing to sustain. This negative clarity, knowing what you don't want, is just as valuable as knowing exactly where you want to go, because it prevents you from continuing to feed cycles that have already run their course. Your relationship with mistakes also begins to change. The fear of making financial mistakes decreases, not because you feel safe, but because you realize that repeating old patterns out of fear is in itself a bigger mistake. Money energy in transition favors learning, adjustment, and awareness, not perfection. And that completely changes how you approach decisions, investments, opportunities, and even calculated risks. Often, this process is accompanied by moments of silence. You feel less need to explain yourself, justify your choices, or prove anything to others. External validation loses strength, while internal validation grows. And this is essential, because a healthy relationship with money begins when you stop using it as a measure of your personal value. When your identity no longer depends solely on how much you earn or own, the flow encounters far less resistance. At this point, you may notice that certain opportunities start appearing subtly. Not major breakthroughs yet, but different conversations, recurring ideas, repeated insights. Nothing feels definitive, but everything seems to point in a new direction. It's as if the environment begins responding to your internal shift, testing whether you're ready to sustain a higher level of financial awareness. And this is exactly where attention becomes crucial. The more you understand what's happening inside you, the easier it becomes to recognize these signs without anxiety, attachment, or self-sabotage. The problem is that many people move through this phase on autopilot, without realizing how important it is. That's why, if you've stayed with me this far, it's worth reinforcing something simple but powerful. Understanding the content is part of the process. This isn't entertainment, it's alignment. And before we move on to the next signs, which are even clearer and more transformative, I want to know where this is landing for you. At the end, leave a short word or phrase in the comments that represents what you're experiencing right now, such as, more clarity, I'm paying attention, I'm changing internally, or I don't want to go back to old patterns. This simple act helps anchor understanding and shows that you're not just listening, but truly moving through this transition. If you stayed with me until the end, that already says a lot about your level of awareness and attention. People who reach the end of a video like this aren't just consuming content, they're seeking real understanding. So if this video resonated with you in any way, take a moment now and subscribe to the channel. Everything here is created to deepen exactly this kind of internal transformation that comes before external change, especially in your relationship with money and energy. And if you made it to the end, I also want you to leave a comment. Write exactly "I understood." Or if you prefer something more personal, "My energy is shifting." This comment isn't just for the algorithm. It's a commitment to the process you've already started noticing within yourself. If this content helped clarify something that was previously confusing, go ahead and like the video. That simple action helps this message reach others who are in the exact same phase you are. And finally, don't leave yet. Watch the next video appearing on the screen, because it goes deeper into what happens after this first sign, and why so many people get stuck at this stage without realizing it. If you keep watching, you'll understand why some people move forward while others stay in the same place for years.